Ask another question as well. You said before that if people wanted to get into politics that they need very strong values, but isn't it true that party politics increasingly in both the Conservatives and Labour has increasingly become less idealistic and more based on like winning votes?
I mean, winning votes is idealistic because
but you don't have ideologies based behind your policies. It's more policies that you think will just please the public.
But the point I was going to make is you can stand on the sidelines and you can make your argument, the perfect argument that appeals to you and 3 other people. But if you don't change anything, then is that the best way of realising your values? The best way of realising your values, and it's a perfectly plausible argument. Some people, that's the way that they like to live. Other people judge their values by how much they've changed. And therefore, if you want to change, that means having a set of policies that don't just appeal to 20 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, appeal to millions and millions of people. So that inevitably is going to involve some compromise, some internal discipline, arguing for something with your party and not getting it, and then still standing up for the thing that wasn't the thing you argued for, because you're part of a collective. And by acting together as a party and by bringing together a coalition of millions of people, you can lead the world in getting rid of poverty in Africa, you can lead the world on climate change, you can have a commitment to end child poverty. All of those things are hugely idealistic and ideological. They would never have happened had it not been, I would say, for a Labour government which believed in those things. When we came into power in '97, it wasn't a question of can we get to 0.7% of GDP going into international development spending. International development spending was going down. Now it's going up massively. And of course politics is about creating that coalition, but it's creating that coalition so as to make the changes that you believe in.
And finally, do you think Labour will win the next election?
That's what I'm trying to do. But you can't predict it as a politician, I don't, I'm one voter amongst, millions, so I can't guess what other people think.
How could you bring confidence back about state pensions back to the British people?
State pensions?
Yeah.
And we just changed the system on state pensions to make them more generous and try to make them simpler. And nothing is risk-free. It's perfectly possible that governments in the future would come and make a change to the law. But I think it's pretty unlikely that in the future governments wouldn't want to pay people a good state pension because they wouldn't get elected, basically. And so you have to compare the risk of that happening against the risk of private pensions or company pensions, or indeed other types of saving, housing, putting money in the stock market. And the best thing is always to have a spread of risk. So you don't have all your money in a house, you don't have all your money in, you have a spread of risk so that over time, over 30, 40, 50 years, as the economy grows, your assets grow as a consequence of that. But the state pension is a pretty good investment.
It was said in the newspaper this morning by David Miliband that Gordon Brown was an inspiration. Do you think that Gordon Brown is an inspiration?
I do. I said something similar on Sunday, which is, you judge a man by his actions, and Gordon Brown has been defined by, all the way through his life, actually wanting to reduce poverty, improve social justice, and that's something that he's done, good times and bad, whatever the fiscal situation. So a good example of that would be our commitment to end child poverty, which is something which he has been passionate about. So what I find inspirational is change and the ability to achieve change, and that's only something Gordon's done.
On Radio 5 on Sunday evening, you were talking about vanguardism. Can I just ask what it is, please?
I don't know if it's actually a word, I may have made it up, but what I meant by it was